AOC reminds proud Latina Kim Guilfoyle that citizens of Puerto Rico are U.S. citizens. I had this argument with my parents last year. It was around the "we're going to buy Greenland and make it the 51st state" time. Though that feels like 100 years ago. My father mentioned how Greenland was going to become the 51st state. I mentioned how Puerto Rico should be a state first given that they are U.S. citizens. My father and mother argued with me that Puerto Ricans aren't U.S. citizens. I don't think I ever fully convinced them that I was right, though they did finally accept that someone from Puerto Rico could move to Florida, or any other state, and immediately register to vote. How they think that can do that without being a citizen, I don't know. As a first-generation American, I know how dangerous their socialist agenda is. Doesn't this seem to imply that her parents escaped some sort of communist hellhole? Her father is from Ireland, and her mother is from Puerto Rico. Neither were ever socialist, and PR is part of the damn US. I wonder how her speech has been received by Republicans. It was certainly one of the most unsettling speeches I've ever seen in the US. At AOC, https://mobile, Twitter.com/AOC, the woman the GOP picked as their proud Latina to tout immigrant experience didn't seem to know that Puerto Rico is already part of the United States. It's quite on message, BC. It reflects their belief that Latinos aren't real citizens, even when we are native descendants. Well, Trump said AOC, who was born in the Bronx, and progressive congresswomen they originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe. It's clear from Trump, and now the entire GOP, that they aren't talking about American citizens, they are blatantly talking about non-white people. Wow, there doesn't seem to be even the slightest attempt to speak to all Americans, just some pep rally speeches to fire up Trump supporters. The message being anyone not a Trump supporter must be treated as evil, corrupt, and not worthy of being called or treated as a fellow American. Sad times we live in. Oh, Guilfoyle knows damn well that citizens of PR are US citizens. She also knows that neither PR nor Ireland, where her father is from, are, or ever were, socialist countries. She said that because she knows Republican voters are idiots. It appeals to their emotion, as they've been conditioned through decades of propaganda to have a visceral negative reaction to the mere mention of the word socialists, M/T. It's one of the GOP's favorite boogeyman words. Puerto Rico needs to be a state already. It's the world's fucking oldest colony, for Pete's sake. That struck me the most after watching that batshit insane speech that was more reminiscent of a stoke-up speech at a Nazi rally in 1938 than at a nominating convention for the American president in 2020. How the fuck do you survive for this long as a Puerto Rican and not realize you fucking are American? Your parents' mother didn't immigrate here, she was a citizen all along. Holy shit, her dad apparently was an Irish immigrant. Edited for clarity. Kim and Don Jr. should have saved the cocaine for after recording their nationally broadcast rants. Remember how Trump didn't do much to address the issues Puerto Rico, an American territory, had after that one hurricane hit it? I wonder why. Thinking face. That struck me as odd too. She started talk about how, as a first-gen American, she knew the terrors of socialism. I was like, oh. Her family is from some socialist dictatorship? Nope. Puerto Rico, and Ireland. LMAO, I mean, she spent her time disparaging the other side with sound bites about how evil they are and how they want to destroy the country. I'm sorry, but the closest I've felt to this country being destroyed, has been under Republican leadership. Bush Jr. and Trump have been abject fucking failures as leaders. The whole Republican convention was something straight out of Nazi Germany. I'm not even kidding, this shit is literally scary. https://m, youtube.com/watch, v=dva11rary0k. She is one of the largest beneficiaries of the socialist California state. She grew up in San Francisco. She went to undergrad in the USC system. She went to UCSF Law School. She was employed on the public's dime as a She was married to the former mayor, now governor of the state. Now she's going to turn around and tell everyone how evil socialism is, from her high and mighty position as a very well-played TV personality, after receiving so many benefits from the very system she's talking shit about. Get fucked, Kim, you fucking parasite. Kim Guilfoyle went from being married to Gavin Newsom to girlfriend of Donnie Jr. Talk about downhill trajectory. As a Puerto Rican, I facepalmed pretty hard hearing another Puerto Rican not know how it works. Do you need a green card/passport to be here, is usually exclusively an ignorant white person question. You can bet Kim will be the butt of all jokes for the next month in Puerto Rico. Her family must be embarrassed. Kim Guilfoyle, born in San Francisco, married to Gavin Newsom, then joining Trump POC, wow. With the vomit coming from Kim Guilfoyle mouth, and the wall of American flags, I felt like I was watching her give a speech supporting Hitler. Also, the phrase Trump's America makes me want to cause damage to my eardrums. Haha. I love how PPL dismiss her as being a bartender, like that's a credible insult, and yet she's the most intelligent person in the room. Rock on AOC fire. Never forget that Donald Trump didn't know who the president of Puerto Rico was. The US failed Puerto Rico after the hurricane under Trump, is that not right? And he wanted to trade it Greenland because it's dirty. And she supports him. Proud Latina my ass. Groveling POS. There is an unspoken contract between these sociopaths and their cult that lying is cool and putting one over on the libs. It's all so Russian. You know they know that this is the case, but they are vile enough to say what they know their base wants to hear, that PR is foreign and requires people to immigrate here. They are not a part of the US, another Mexico. Guilfoyle is a nasty and rancid opportunist and proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt last night. It's astonishing of how many Americans that don't know, the people on the island of Puerto Rico are US citizens. It's simply dumbfounding. As someone who got naturalized in December 2018, this is so frustrating to hear someone like Guilfoyle confuse her experience of a Puerto Rican with being an actual immigrant. Puerto Ricans don't have to worry about obtaining visas, hoping that the embassy worker reviewing your application is not having a bad day, wondering about how capricious immigration policies will affect your status, obtaining green cards, being turned back at a port of entry, or getting deported. So for her to claim that she's a first-generation American is infuriating for someone like me, who did have to worry about those kinds of things. It should also be infuriating for Puerto Ricans, whose birthright American citizenship apparently isn't real enough for some. She's never had to worry for one day in her life that her mother could be deported or denied entry, or that her application for status, renewal, or citizenship could be denied and that her mother would have to leave the country if her legal status ran out. That's a real concern that all real immigrants, legal or illegal, have had to deal with. Many Americans seem to think legal status is like registering a car and that it's easy to obtain and maintain. Yeah, nope. Also, I'm sure they complain about late fees when they forget to renew in time. I am literally out of ideas for how to roast Americans over poor choices. Maybe the confusion is because Puerto Rico doesn't have representatives in Congress. We should change that for Guilfoyle's sake. The yelling speech was ridiculous. The whole event is a circus and carnival shit show. So over the top with all the fake patriotism. Put together by people from The Apprentice to try and give it flair. Did the opposite.